In this presentation, we'll discuss the Informatica platform for onboarding data in the Master Data Management Multi-Domain Edition version 10 of the software. Version 10 of MDM was released November 2014, and in this module, I will introduce the concepts of the Informatica platform, but also the Informatica tool that you can use to actually get source data, process the source data, and load it into the staging tables of the MDM ORS. But first, we'll talk about assumptions and prerequisites, the objectives as well as the target audience for this module. Then we'll talk about the platform. I will review the data flow of MDM, how you should be used to it from prior versions, and how the MDM version 10 may change that flow. We'll talk about the Informatica Developer, which is the new part here of onboarding data. I'll mention various reference materials. I will give you a walkthrough of a slide demo, and then you'll be able to see an actual product demo. There are no hands-on labs in this module. In terms of assumptions and prerequisites, number one is this assumes that you have prior working knowledge of MDM. Perhaps you've been using MDM 9.x, 9.6, 9.7, 9.5. All that knowledge, we're going to make use of it in this presentation. So this is not to teach you MDM, but rather to show you the differences, newer concepts, newer terminology of MDM version 10, specifically for how you can source data, transform data, and load that data into the MDM staging tables. So we're going to review the onboarding of data first, how you can do it in version 9.x, but also how you can still do it in version 10, but in addition, introduce the new ways of onboarding data. We'll talk about the components of MDM and also introduce the new components of the Informatica platform. After this, you'll be in a great shape to identify what other training steps you might want to take. We'll show you the reference materials that I encourage you to download, give you a few demos that you can follow. In terms of the target audience, this is for MDM configurators or developers, architects, and I've included here ETL developers. Why? Because these are the developers that possibly have experience with PowerCenter or Informatica Developer to do data integration. And so Informatica platform, Informatica Developer tool, incorporates some of that methodology as well as tools that we're going to see to bring in data, transform data, and load data. In our case, it's to load the data into the staging tables of the MDM ORSs. Also, data preparers and administrators would be people who would also appreciate the terminology and the architectural aspects of onboarding data. What do I mean by onboarding data? Most of you are familiar with onboarding data. It means we have source data, a database, a flat file. We have source data. We want to bring in that data to analyze it. We want to bring in that data to transform it. We want to bring in that data to then bring it into the MDM Hub processes. Specifically, we're going to review the landing and the data flow that consists of the landing tables, staging tables, and you'll see the data flow in a moment. Now, before version 10, using MDM, we could bring in data into the landing phase, and then we could also then move it from the landing to the staging. That's the traditional way. Before version 10, we also had customized solutions that allow you to go directly from source data over to the landing or the staging tables. But now with version 10, you don't need that. In version 10, you can still follow standard procedures of the MDM solution, but also now you can benefit and leverage by using what is called the Informatica platform, which consists of the Informatica Developer tool that allows us to create various objects to load data. And you'll see that. In terms of onboarding data, I like this picture because it simplifies the processes quite a bit. This is the standard procedure that was used in earlier versions of MDM, for example, 9.x. It is still the procedure you can use in MDM version 10. You don't have to deviate if you don't want to. So this is still true for now, version 10, as it was true for version 9.x. You had, say, 3 source systems. You would create landing tables. You would then populate those landing tables. You would then, in the MDM Hub Console, you will create based objects with staging tables. You will then run those objects to move data from the landing to the staging tables. In the staging table, that is what would be called the cleansing phase or the staging phase. So nothing here should be new to you because remember the assumption is you have working knowledge of MDM. So this is the traditional way, and to repeat, it is still the way you can do it in MDM version 10. This is a very detailed view of the internal processing. Those of you that have taken Informatica's MDM Hub Configuration course probably know this picture very well. You have source data coming in, you have a landing phase, a staging phase, which is the cleansing phase, and you're building this. You're building the landing tables, the staging tables, you're executing so that you can move data from a source to a landing to a staging, to the load, to the based objects, and finally to the golden records. So again, this is the traditional way that you can use in version 10 also, as you did in earlier versions. Now, onboarding data in version 10 adds things. So please, it doesn't remove, it doesn't deprecate. In addition to doing it the traditional way, you have new ways in version 10. Here is a new word I'm introducing called Vibe. Using Vibe to onboard data. What does that mean? Well, Vibe is the platform. It's a platform. It includes the Informatica Developer tool, which is a thin client application that you use to create what are mappings, and you're going to see that in a demo. It is GUI driven. In MDM version 10, you have a license included with MDM that allows you to use Informatica Developer. It is restricted to source data, transform the data, and when you execute that mapping, it will load that data into the staging tables of the MDM ORSs. So, for those of you that are familiar with the Informatica Developer, you might have already used it for processing big data, or for creating data quality projects, or for creating data integration projects. So the developer tool, the Informatica Developer tool, for many of you might already know this tool very well. Well, in version 10, we've now also integrated it into the MDM solution. If this is brand new to you, how to use the Informatica Developer, I highly recommend the on-demand e-learning course called the Informatica Tool, an Introduction. It's approximately a few hours that you can learn on your own self-pace. One caution, especially for those of you that come with a lot of experience, do not confuse Informatica Developer with Power Center. We are not talking about Power Center. We're talking about the Informatica Developer tool that allows me to handle big data problems, data quality problems, data integration, and now as of version 10, MDM staging of data. So, if we were to look at a picture of onboarding data with version 10, notice this picture differs from the earlier one. Here, I have a data source, and instead of going directly to the MDM hub, as in the prior diagram, I make a stop at something called the Informatica platform. We're going to see what's inside of there, what's inside of the platform. Okay? So, in terms of the data flow, we're talking about the area where this red box is pictured here. So in version 10, we're pretty much saying that there is another way to do the onboarding of data. From a source to the landing to the staging, we could do it this way, but we could also do it differently. And that's the purpose of this presentation. Now, what is the Informatica platform? Well, conceptually, the Informatica platform includes a a platform of data quality, master data management, data archiving, data security capability. It's a full-blown data integration, data quality platform. What it does, it allows non-experts, non-data experts to participate in the cleansing, in the mastering, in the general harmonization of enterprise data so they can intelligently discover it and create their own. In other words, it brings the power of looking at data, analyzing data, transforming data up closer to the data steward, the person needing the data. Technically, it consists of a bunch of tools and services that have to be installed and running, and you have to have a license that you then use to execute and process data. Specifically to MDM version 10, what it does, it transfers source data. Remember the source data that we eventually have to bring into the MDM Hub, from which we're going to configure trust and generate the golden records? Well, that source data is what I'm talking about. With MDM version 10, we can bring that source data into the MDM Hub staging tables. And staging tables, just to review, are part of based objects. Well, we can do that the traditional way, but we can also use the Informatica platform to do that. In terms of the platform components, let's review from a very brief and high-level view. Notice that you have your source data. Let's ignore that for now. We know we have source data. On the extreme right, we have the MDM Hub. From prior training or working knowledge of MDM, on the extreme right, you recognize that there's a Hub Console, a Hub Server, a Hub Store, the ORS, and staging tables. You should already be familiar with that. What should be new to us is the middle box, the Informatica platform. Look what's in there. There is something called the developer tool. That is a GUI tool that you will learn to use, and you will create various objects. Let me give you a tip. They're going to be called mappings, maplets, transformations. So once you learn how to use that and create those objects, you will be bringing in source data, changing it, transforming it, and then when you execute this, it will move over that data that has been cleansed or integrated over to the MDM Hub staging tables. Now, the developer tool needs supporting infrastructure, services. That is the data integration service. So the data integration service is a service that's running that transforms data. Of course, we need a database or a repository in which we're going to store our work. That is the model repository service. It's a database. Informatica calls it the model repository. They will contain the metadata of the objects. So we need that. And so we have the model repository itself, which is the database, for example, Oracle. But it also has a service that talks to it. If you really like this architecture description, I encourage you to take the various Informatica Administrator courses or the developer courses in which we can talk more about this, or just download the reference documents that I will show you in a moment. Now, just to review, things that I feel you should already know because of your prior experience. The Hub Console is the client application to access the MDM Hub. That's what configurators, that's what MDM developers use. The Hub Server is a Java application, and the Hub Store is a database where you're going to store your data. These are the same components as found in version 9.x, but enhanced now to work with the platform. In terms of the platform, you have the developer tool, which is a GUI application that allows you to access various components in which you will design how you want to get data, transform the data, and store the data into the staging tables of the MDM Hub. As I mentioned, the data integration service and the model repository service are services that have to be installed, you have to be licensed for them, and they have to be up and running and configured correctly so that when you are ready to execute, data is actually moved from point A to point B. Now, the model repository is a database. Now, here are a few tips. Use the platform to stage the MDM staging tables as the preferred method. Remember, I can also create landing tables I can create staging tables, and then using MDM the traditional way, I can move data from sources to landing to staging. What I'm suggesting here is if you use the Informatica Developer tool, I believe you're going to increase your productivity. Once you become familiar with the tool, I believe you're going to fall in love. You're going to be able to do what I call magic. Bring in data, process it, cleanse it, change it, and then run it so that it can store the transformed data into the staging table. It really is a productivity booster. Now, the concept of transformations, if you're brand new to this concept, what transformations are objects that change data. Part of your learning curve when you are learning the developer tool is to learn what the transformations are. For example, we have some to make data uppercase, to parse data, to concatenate data, to change the address. So part of the learning curve is to learn and how to configure the transformations. But don't worry, we have classes for all this. What I'm suggesting here is that you can leverage the powerful transformations to change data, cleanse data, aggregate data before you load it into the hub. It really is a productivity gain. Also, the Informatica platform incorporates concepts such as reusability, rapid development. If we know that we're going to do certain things over and over again, we can actually repeat them. We don't have to write them from scratch over and over again. We have reusability and we have rapid development. Again, productivity gains. Now, I do encourage you to take various Informatica training courses. The one you might like to take, which is a e-learning self-paced course, is the e-learning class for Informatica Developer Tool, the Introduction. Of course, we also have the MDM courses. Now, let's take a walkthrough. Now, what you're looking at is the MDM Hub Console. From prior experience, you know that what we're looking in is the Hub Console. We logged in, we are at the Enterprise Manager, and one thing we have to do if we plan to integrate the MDM Hub with the with the Informatica platform is to make the connection. So simply all we're doing here is telling the MDM Hub Console where the repository is in the Informatica platform. Remember that we need a database, and so we're just making the connection. Don't worry, it's pretty straightforward. In our training class, we actually give you a few labs on this. Now, once you now connected the MDM Hub with the platform or the Informatica tool, the rest is pretty much configuring what you need done. For example, remember that the staging table will bring in data from the landing table. The landing table will bring in data from a source table. Well, when you do this the traditional way, you have multi-steps. If you do it through the Informatica platform using the developer tool, it'll be, I believe, easier, but there is some work we got to do here. We need to tell and configure the staging table to say that we are connecting it or synchronizing it to the Informatica platform. Why? Because remember, it's an option. You don't have to use this at all. You can keep landing, staging data as you did in version 9.x of MDM. With version 10 as an option, you can do it through the platform, and these are the settings that you would have to set. Now, wow, what is this? This is the Informatica Developer tool. Many of you might already be familiar with it. As I said earlier, we use the same interface for big data, for data quality, and a few other processing. Here, it is the same GUI, but now we're specifically using it and tying it in to the MDM. So notice you have several windows on the left at the bottom. Those pretty icons in the middle, those are called transformations. Those transformations are in or contained in a mapping or maplet. And so the concepts of a mapping, a maplet transformation, that's why I encourage you for you to take a training class on this. Once you become familiar, you will create these design objects, and upon execution, assuming you've configured the MDM Hub correctly, when you run this, the data that you're bringing in, that you're transforming, will be loaded and stored in the staging tables of the MDM. Now, Again, just to repeat some of the terminology, in the Informatica Developer tool, we have the concept of a mapping, which is your primary unit of work or object of work. A mapping will bring in data, transformations, and then write it out. It could be as simple as bringing in first name, making it uppercase, and then storing it. Or it could be extremely complex, bringing in several sources called logical data objects, creating reusable code called maplets, and then transforming it, maybe aggregating, sorting, maybe checking the address for validations, maybe aggregation of data. It can be endless types of works that you want to do. At the end of the day, we will run this, and the output of this is the data that will be stored in the staging tables of the MDM. In terms of references, I highly encourage you to always log into mysupport.informatica.com. It will require you to have your login. Once you log in successfully, I encourage you to download the release guide, the release notes, because they describe what is new in version 10. Also, notice the documents there. If you are interested in the differences, you can download the differences in MDM. There goes the document, the upgrade, and as well as different documents on how to show you how to create mappings, how to use Developer. When you log into Informatica.com and you go to My Support, I highly encourage you to download the MDM document set. You can download each document individually, but the document set includes all of them. And there's plenty of them, the configuration guide, etc. So I highly encourage you to download this and have this as part of your library, or of course, take a training class. Now, here is a very good and short demo by my colleague, Anshul Jain. When you click on this link, you will be able to then see what I've been talking about. You'll see the GUI and you'll see the Informatica Developer at work. In summary, MDM version 10 was released November 2014. Remember, every release has new features, bug fixes, but it also includes new functionality. Of course, we'll have different hot fixes. We'll have different releases as we go through. But the important thing, and I just want to highlight this, in terms of what you know of MDM, you still need that knowledge. Our training courses are still valid. You can leverage that. These are just additional features if you want to use them. You don't have to, but I encourage you, of course, to use the newer features. If you have work already done in earlier versions, you can migrate, you can upgrade. Always check with Informatica Tech Support and download the appropriate documents before you actually move your data, move your ORSs over to version 10. Follow the upgrade migration procedures. And of course, a tip. I highly encourage you to take courses on Informatica Developer. Once you know that, you can use the same developer tool for MDM, big data, and data quality.